Good afternoon, everybody. Supplemental reports from the police officers who raided Nick Rekieta's house have been released today, and I have at least two of them, but I believe there are probably more. I mean, from the other officers who assisted in the raid. I plan on reviewing those too, and if I can manage to get a hold of the other ones during the course of this stream, I will go through those as well. The reports I have are from officers Pomplin and Nestor. First one is from Nestor, second one from Pomplin. If you have access to that and can help shoot that over to me at Good Logic, either providing a link that I see here or email me at goodlogic at gmail.com. That's Good Logic, spelled like my name here, at gmail.com. I would be most obliged because that would enable me to go through the other reports as well. On YouTube and Rumble, I will be covering the facts and the law as we see it here, and I will also be um and I'll be breaking that down. I'm going to do everything I can to avoid doxing anybody. For example, in the first report that we're going to go through, I blacked out the address of Aaron Imholt, which was in the version of the report that I had. Other stuff that was blacked out here, besides that, was cut out. I'm also trying to keep out the names of his children, which are identified in some of these reports, but not all of them. So to the extent I can black those out, I'm gonna try and do that. With respect to the children, I only had in one report one child's name is referenced. There's a daughter of his, so I highlighted that in red. If you're able to send me a report which is already redacted and can just have like, I don't know, like red for one girl, pink for another girl. I think he has two girls and two boys who were in the house. So red for one girl, pink for another girl, and then blue for one boy, I guess, and green for another boy. So that way, if in fact all four of them are identified, that way we can sort of track who we're talking about at different stages of this story without getting confused between the different children and who's where and who's inside, who's outside, who's upstairs, who's downstairs throughout the course of these reports. I would that would be helpful, but I certainly do not want to dox them. But I do need to take care of my daughter who needs me momentarily. So give me 1 second. Okay. All right. So without further ado, let's jump right in on these reports. But if any of you can help get those reports over to me, like I said, I have the reports of Nestor and Pomplin. I don't have the reports of any other officers. Someone sent me, the reason I believe that there are other reports out there is because someone sent me snippets from a report that I couldn't find that in either report that I had here. So I actually asked them, where'd you get that? And I haven't yet heard back yet. So that's why I'm suspecting it's likely that other police officers filed reports that other people may have access that I have not yet accessed. But I am trying to protect his children from being doxxed, and accordingly, to the extent that I can play a role in blocking out their names from the public view, I'd like to do that. Okay, without further ado, let's get in on this. Okay, so this is the report from Nestor. I believe this is Nestor. Not doing it that way. We'll do it this way. Okay, this is a report from Nestor. I don't know why it says last modified 5/16/2024. That's a little weird to me, but let's go forward. On 5/16/24, at approximately 08:39 hours, I, Sergeant David Nestor, the Kandiyohi County Sheriff's. Let's make this a little bigger for you all. Make this bigger. Make this. Nah, I see I'm on the wrong thing here. I apologize. That's from when I was trying to edit before. Okay. On 5/16/24, approximately 8:39 hours, I Sergeant David and Esther of the Kandiyohi County Sheriff's Office was asked to stop into the office, take a mandatory reporting call from an individual who wished to remain anonymous but was mandated to report. His name was Kevin Mellon. He was a pastor with the Evangelical Covenant Church in the city of New London. He's the pastor to a family with 5 children. The family he received reported information on neglect on is Nicholas Rekieta, his wife Kayla Rekieta, and their children. So he tried to block out the children. The children reside with their mother and father. Advised that the Rekietas have a live-in nanny for approximately 4 to 5 years, Cheney Bitson, who recently left the Rekietas and had been working for another family within the church. This was a first flag for the individuals who reported to Mellon that something was wrong with the Rekieta family. Why? Because they had, okay. I guess they assumed that there was some sort of dispute there. Mellon advised that Bitson, not Blitzen, Bitson does not know that this report has been made. A total of 4 anonymous people made contact with Mellon and advised of the following information. Nicholas and Kayla Rekieta have 2 homes within the property of blank, a family who had been staying in one home, Jessica, with an unknown husband, Jessica Hatfield, were asked to leave recently and nobody's occupying the residence now. Okay. Nicola and Kate, I guess Nicholas, it's supposed to be Nicholas. Nicholas and Kayla Rekieta have formed a new relationship with Aaron and April Imholt. I was advised that Aaron Imholt and Nicholas Rekieta do some type of blogging and or YouTube radio shows. Mellon was advised that the Imholts moved in with the Rekietas as well. Okay. The house is in disarray with clothes and other cluster items everywhere. So I guess it's just a general issue. The children are 2 boys and 3 girls. They have been noted to have been wearing the same clothing for 3 to 4 days with their clothing in disarray and starting to smell. Okay. The preschool director at the church that Blank attends, as the name I crossed out, is Paula Holman. Holman advised Mellon that the younger children have advised her that they are hungry and not being fed, and also made comments about the clothing. Okay. So in the prior report, in the pre-arrest report, or the pre-search warrant, in the affidavit that was submitted it, they said that the children were hungry. This not being fed is, I believe, a new element that's being brought in here, this is new information that we, the public, have. I believe that's my recollection. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that's what I believe it to be. And also made a comment about the clothing. One anonymous party advised that they do not believe the children born in 2012 and 2015 are being homeschooled, while the older boys do attend school at the Christian school. So they think that the homeschool claim, I guess, is a myth. All information that is regarding the church, the Rekieta family, has now gone to Christian, as the response is not attainable from Nicholas and Kayla. Is Christian the Christian school here? It's the first time we see the name Christian. Is that a reference to the school? I guess it's the Christian school. An anonymous person advised Mellon. That's not good. Let's undo that. I'm gonna do this like this, make it a little smaller. An anonymous person advised that Nicholas will walk out randomly during sermons. Okay. I'm trying the Robert Gavea thing here. Sorry, I skipped a line here. An anonymous person advised Mellon that they observed Nicholas being lethargic and appeared to be high or drugged during driving a car around. Anonymous person said they walked out randomly during sermons. Which I assume they're trying to imply that he's going out to get a hit or something, some sort of. I assume that's what the implication is designed to imply. Anonymous individuals have advised Mellon that they have noticed behavior changes in both Nicholas and Kayla, with Kayla almost appearing now to be anorexic, which is anorexia is obviously a symptom that is commonly associated with drug use, and Nicholas have lost substantial amounts of weight recently. Anonymous individuals have advised that they have seen what was being described as injection or track marks on Nicholas's arm. Now, I'm just going to point this out, and I'm only pointing this out now because I raised it yesterday. Let me undo that because I really blocked everything out. But then when they talk over here about track marks, what's interesting is that when we're going to see the results of the search, every time I've looked at any results of the search, they don't seem to find any needles at all. Doesn't mean that there are. It doesn't mean he hasn't used needles. I'm simply saying I know you will know when you go through it that, or at least I've noted that there are no needles that are found anywhere in the home. So they describe this injection or track marks on Nicholas's arms. So okay, anonymous individuals advise Mellon that they believe the Aimholts are possibly assisting with some type of drug use with Nicholas and Kayla Rekieta. Nicholas's blogging and views and or subscribers are down, possibly resulting in financial losses. That's an interesting little wrinkle to throw in here. So are they saying because he's using drugs, that's why his numbers are down? I didn't know that numbers going down is something that is part of a police report, like financial. I guess that makes sense. Okay. As an anonymous person who advised Mellon that at one point Nicholas and Kayla Rekieta left with the Imholtz to go to a casino, leaving the children alone, putting the oldest son, who was born in 2007, in charge. That means he's 16. I mean, that's I don't. Mel was unsure if that was suitable or not. He's okay. He's 2007. He's 16 or 17, right? Mel advised that nobody told him that anything other than possible neglect. Told him anything other than possible. Nobody advised him that nobody told him anything other than possible neglect and or drug use. I don't know what that sentence means. Mel advised that nobody told him anything other than possible neglect and or drug use. I don't really know what that means. There was 0 reports of any physical or sexual abuse, and the kids were not in immediate danger at the time of this report. So this would explain this part over here. I and several others have noted that this report came in on May 16th. Why did they wait a week to go in there? We all know he had his situation on May 21st, and this explains it. This explains what that is. That hey, look, they didn't feel that the kids were any sort of immediate danger, and this is what Nestor and the report from David Nestor. So that explains his position as to why they didn't go in. So perhaps this is why it was May 16th. Maybe he hasn't updated since May 16th. So what do we have from this so far? So basically, we have Nicholas looking lethargic, sometimes leaving sermons, which I guess they're trying to say they would try to use for the purposes of saying that he was such an addict that he need to leave in the middle of a sermon to go get a hit. I'm looking at this as far as what they would use, assuming this were to go to trial, what the state would try to use here as evidence of drug use by the Rekietas. So assuming they can find this anonymous person, because Mellon wouldn't be able to testify about this. So if you're the state and you're looking to convict the Rekietas, so what are you looking at? What are you taking from this report that you may try to employ? So statements from Mellon are not going to be helpful to them. I would imagine they certainly would follow up with the people and say who spoke to you so we can get their observations. You need to get eyewitnesses who spoke to Mellon and have them testify as to what they saw. So that would be a follow-up. I'm not saying that's necessary for the purposes of this report. I'm not saying that's necessary for the purposes of getting getting a warrant approved by the court, or necessary for the warrant to be to withstand scrutiny. I'm simply observing as to, okay, if this were to go to trial, what would they do with this report? And you would think that they would basically try to get Mellon to get to label up to him, serve up to him who spoke to him. There may be confidentiality issues between a pastor and a parishioner, which may preclude Mellon from sharing that. I don't think that Mellon would likely be able to testify other than what he personally saw, not what was told to him. So, but based on the language here, doesn't seem like Mellon himself observed these things. These are just complaints that came to him. Um, it is interesting. Another interesting factor is that multiple persons are coming to him. I would try to find out whether these persons came in a group or whether three or four people said, "Hey, we're going to go talk to the pastor about this," or whether they were acting separately. They came over a couple of days, because the latter would imply to me the that to me I would probably attach more veracity to the latter, although I'm not sure if that's a fair assessment. But if they're coming as a group, you wonder if Nick ticked some people off, especially since this whole discussion about the Imholtz moving in is a little bit unusual. And again, I'm just trying to figure out how a state would present this. So that's how I'm breaking this down. And obviously, look, concerns about the children not being fed or being properly taken care of. These are things that anyone would have concerns about if they get reports about this. They're not being properly fed, wearing smelly clothing. That's obviously disconcerting. And definitely, that shouldn't happen for any child. That should be something that we all agree on that. Okay, so supplemental report here. Try to make sure I don't get any names on here. I'm pretty sure I searched through all the names. So I don't I don't know whose supplemental report this is, because this seems like a different one. I believe Chloe Adams is just the clerk working in a cop station there. And talk about here they list off all the charges, which we know these charges. 152.022 is drug possession in the second degree. Neglect or endangerment of a child, which is 609.378.1 subsection 2, is basically having drugs around the child. So it's not a charge that like you've been neglectful. And even though they raise issues as to the children being properly fed and clothed, the implication is that the basis of this charge is simply having drugs around children, rather than you've been neglecting or God forbid worse, doing worse type of abuse to a child. Certain persons not to possess firearms is saying basically you're keeping the guns too close to you can't possess guns around drug use, which I know a lot of people have raised constitutional issues about this. Certain people have raised constitutional issues about this. This is not the case that I would think you would want to try and make a whole big stink about this rather than trying to resolve this situation. All right. Evidence. The following items were located in the master bedroom. Yellow snort tube positive for cocaine, black vial with white substance inside. NIK tested positive for cocaine. Contents were removed from a black container and placed in a separate baggie weighing 2.2 grams within the bag. This one says within the bag, as opposed to other weights that we've seen, which basically say including the bag. Within the bag implies a language of, and because when we're talking over here, we know the cutoff of threshold from being a level 2 down to a level 3 is at 25 grams. The total cumulative weight that was reported in your earlier reports was 26.7 grams. That means you're barely crossing over that threshold. And if they're incorporating the baggies in there, you wonder if they're going to stay above the threshold. So, I mean, objectively, even with the baggies, from what I understand, weigh less like 0.01 of a gram. That's what I understand. Or is it point one? So unless you're talking, even if it's point one, you would need to have 17 baggies in there to get under the 25. So they also list two credit cards from April M. Holte. Now this is interesting because the assumption about the credit cards, I believe, is that the cards are used to draw lines for cocaine, make even lines for cocaine, and you would think that this probably is part of the reason that April was arrested. There's a concept of constructive possession, which this is likely to come up during the course of this case as it goes forward. Because if you have something in your home, even if it's not physically in your hand, the law recognizes that as constructive possession. Now, it's possible that if it's in a safe, that only one person can access, another person cannot. So that would distinguish lines of constructive possession. But when using a term constructive possession, we're basically saying that even though it's not physically in your possession, the law will regard it as if it's physically in your possession because you have exclusive access and control to it. So, accordingly, in the eyes of the law, we don't care whether it's physically in your hand, it may as well be. So, you have constructive possession of a car you're driving. It's not physically in your hand, but if you lock it in a garage, you have constructive possession of that car. Whether or not you're the owner, you're deemed to have constructive possession. So, with respect to these drugs, reports that have come out, the early reports that have come out, is the April Imholt charges have been dropped. I assume those are correct. I haven't heard any refutation of that. But the reason that perhaps she was charged is because you say, why is it her credit card that's being used here unless she's partaking in these illegal activities? And the and I think that, but that's really a weak basis to go after her. The constructive possession that could attach to both Nick and Kayla. Now I don't know whether that would be that whether they each could be hit jointly, and this is something I've discussed in the past. I haven't researched enough about Minnesota law to actually weigh in on this. But when you have two people who have constructive possession over the same home, my wife and I have constructive possession over everything in our house. Does that mean that when you're talking about having a weight that crosses a threshold, so we have joint custody over it, so we each would get hit with it? It's possible. I'm not going to rule that out. I'm not going to rule that out as a legal possibility. It does seem harsh to cross the threshold that way. 22. They also reference a 22 caliber spent shell casings on the floor of the nightstand in the master bedroom. Following item was located underneath the bed in the master bedroom. 6-hour AR with several magazines, and in the dresser. That's under the bed is where they had that, and loose ammunition. So I think that's designed to help support the gun charge. Following item was located in the master bedroom dresser, glass container with metal filter and grinder, and glass container positive for cocaine. Okay. Following items were located in a safe in the master bedroom. Sorry, master bathroom. So in the master bathroom, there's a safe which had a bag with cards and dollar bill that were positive for cocaine. A large corner cut baggie with white powder tested positive for cocaine, weighing 18.96 grams. This is obviously the heart of the stash that they purportedly found. That's 18.96 grams. Notice over here they say with packaging. Up above, it said 2.2 grams within the bag. That's why I was highlighting that distinction. So this sounds like the packaging is included in the weight of 18.96 grams. Three small baggies tested positive for cocaine, weighing 5.49 grams with packaging. Green colored tablets tested positive for ketamine. 8 dosage units. Digital scale tested positive for cocaine. Metal pen with white powder on it, also testing positive for cocaine. 2 snort tubes and 2 metal cutters. I assume these are different snort tubes than the yellow snort tube. So 2 snort tubes and 2 metal cutters. I don't know what a metal cutter is in this context. I don't profess to know what that's supposed to mean. Locating a safe in the master. That was the safe in the master bathroom. A separate safe in the master bedroom closet had a $100 bill with white powder residue testing positive for cocaine, a bindle white bag with white powder substance testing positive for cocaine, a cocaine scooper. See, that I don't know what that means. I don't, it's a cocaine scooper. I don't know if this tested positive for cocaine. They don't seem to reference that. Two baggies with a baggie within a baggie with a funnel. I'm not sure what that would be about. Two baggies within one baggie. So you have one baggie with two baggies in it. Doesn't seem like there's cocaine on them. I don't know. And then an unknown brown substance negative on all NIK tests. Okay. So it doesn't sound like right now he has to worry about that. Following items were located in a safe in a garage and a closet. Springfield Armory 45 caliber 1911, Sig Sauer 38 380 handgun, serial number 297A, 45 45 caliber magazines and two 380 caliber magazines full of ammunition. Okay. Following items were located within the garage. Ammunition from the garage, including 45 and 2.223 ammo. Remington 870 12 gauge shotgun. Following items were located in the master closet. 45 caliber bullet. Okay. Total weight of measurable cocaine is 26.7 grams. That's the key thing here. Okay. I'm going to do the math here on this. I'm going to do the math real quick on this. So what did we say? How much we have? We have 5.49 plus 18.96 is 24 point 24.45, 24.45, and then 2.2 over here is 26.65. That's what I'm saying here. Okay. Here's digital evidence they took, which is interesting to me. Digital photographs, audio recording of Nicholas Rekieta. I wonder where they managed to find that. I don't know. Where'd you find that? Where'd that come from? Body cam video. Okay. And this is evidence that they would potentially use at trial, right? So digital photographs, which may have incriminating appearances on them, audio recording from Nicholas Rekieta, body cam video, and then PowerPoint video clip. So I guess this is created for evidentiary purposes. When you're talking about a PowerPoint video, I don't even know what that is. Clip from Nicholas Rekieta's online podcast, which shows white powdery substance on his nose, and also a screenshot from Nicholas Rekieta's podcast, which shows the white powdery substance on his nose. I don't think Nicholas makes PowerPoint video. I'm wondering where that came from. Application for search warrant receipt and inventory details. Detective Quinn Poplin had been made aware of Sergeant David Nestor of Family Services report from mandated reporter regarding Nicholas Robert Rekieta and Kayla Rekieta. Reviewed Sergeant Nestor's initial report, and on 5/22/24, I was reviewing further information in relation to this investigation. Okay, so there's an investigation coming on here, which is 6 days later. After reviewing that information, I applied for a search warrant, which is for this address, which is the Rekieta's residence, as well for a search of Nicholas Rekieta. For further information in relation to follow-up investigations information, please refer to search warrant. We looked at that yesterday. It was arranged that on May 23rd, 24, deputies would meet at a predetermined location, eventually travel to execute the search warrant. We traveled to the area, and while almost to the residence, we observed a black-colored Lincoln vehicle with Nicholas in the driver's seat. Uh-oh. Traveling southbound on 51st Street as we were traveling northbound. They're driving along. Hey, there he is. It's pretty funny. Sergeant Nestor was advised to stop Nicholas and detain him as he was part of the search warrant, and his person was to be searched, which Sergeant Nestor did. The rest of the above mentioned officers then continued traveling to execute the search warrant, and we arrived at approximately 0913 hours. Chief Deputy Kent Bauman stayed and went to the traffic stop with Sergeant Nestor. Stayed and went. Chief Deputy, I'm trying to just picture this whole scene. So, Chief Deputy, so the rest of the officers, let's get this straight. So, we're driving along here. We see Nick driving his car. Khan's biking. Oh, okay. So we see him driving his Lincoln. Sergeant Nestor is the one who stops him. And I guess so Kent Bauman, I guess he said, I'm gonna go back and help out Nestor in dealing with Nick wherever Nick was. Somewhere on 51st Street, obviously not right in front of the house. When we arrived on scene, we started knocking on the door of the south side of the residence and able to gain a response from a young female juvenile from within the residence who advised us that her dad advised her not to open the door for strangers. Look at that. Isn't that precious? There you go. There you go. That's a well-trained kid. Well-bred kid right there. We knocked for several moments, indicating we were law enforcement trying to speak with the juvenile to come to open the door. We knocked for several moments, indicating we were law enforcement. Police! Trying to speak with the juvenile to come open the door for us. We noted there was a keypad on the door. Attempt to make radio contact with either Chief Deputy Bauman or Sergeant Nestor, hoping that Nick would provide that. When I overheard radio communication with Sergeant Nestor advising that Nicholas was not going to give us the door code to open the door. This was after several moments and an appropriate time for an adult to make it to the door, at which time Detective Nick Ardoff, utilizing a ram, opened the door, causing minimal damage to the door. Obviously, no damage to the door whatsoever. That's just totally fine. While making entry into the residence, I observed as Sergeant Swanson was standing in the kitchen and was making commands for someone to walk towards him. So we're making entry into the residence, and he hears Swanson say, he's in the kitchen, and he's saying, walk towards me. I was holding on the stairway to the downstairs and observed two females came from a hallway on the northern part of the residence towards Sergeant Swanson. They were detained and brought outside. You know, there's parts left out here. You know that. I'm not saying they did anything wrong. I'm just saying this sounds all right. But there were two children located on the upstairs floor. We were advised that there was one child downstairs. So Kayla said that there was one child. There's two on the upstairs floor. Kayla says there's one downstairs. The other female who was detained was April Diane Imholt. So they were moved outside. Eventually, while making loud commands into the basement from the top of the stairs, I observed a juvenile male walk out. So one of his sons comes out. I advised him to walk up the stairs, which he complied and went out and stood with his mother. I continued searching the residence, and we located an additional juvenile female in a basement bedroom who was apparently sleeping. Oh my God, that's horrible, being woken up by the police. I advised her to walk out with me to her mom, which she agreed to do. Oh, that's gotta be terrifying. She held my hand as we walked outside. Okay. 4 children were placed outside with their mother, Kayla Rekieta, as well as April Imholt. The children located in the residence were blank, which is blacked out, which is a good job. I was advised by Sergeant Nestor and Chief Deputy Bauman that they were going to have Nick travel back to their residence as we executed the search warrant. So they're going to bring him back to the home. We continued clearing the residence. We were able to have the residence secured. The residence was extremely cluttered. Clothes everywhere and dirty dishes. Dust and an overall dirty home. This is designed to help show neglect, which maybe there was. I overheard Nicholas Rekieta arguing with Chief Deputy Bauman in the front of the house, demanding that he receive a copy of the search warrant, which at that time I handed him a copy of the search warrant. I saw him look at it and eventually throw it on the ground. I think every one of us can actually picture this. This is probably the easiest part of this whole thing for all of us to imagine. Handing it to him, he's like looking at it, he's like throwing it on the ground. I can definitely picture Nick. You know that's what he did. You know that this part I believe. This part I believe without any reservation at all. I'm sure there were almost definitely some expletives. That part I can picture easy. The house was a very large house at almost 5,000 square feet. We started searching the master bedroom, where almost immediately Detective Sergeant Brandis located a snort tube and black vial on top of two credit cards. Those items are listed above. Snort tube tested positive for cocaine. Inside the black tube was a noticeable amount of a white powdery substance, which also field tested. Also field tested. That's terrible. We don't do that. That also field tested positive for cocaine. All right. Around that time, I went outside and spoke with Nicholas Rekieta. I requested him to speak with me, advised him of his Miranda warnings. He agreed to speak with me and waived his right to counsel. Okay. This is this is not what we tell you to do. This is not what we tell you to do. Don't take lessons from this. He explained to me that he may not answer certain questions. Okay. This conversation was recorded on my body camera. And I know there's efforts to try that people are trying to secure that body camera. Apparently, they're saying that the cost is like $3,000 to do a search through the 50 hours worth of 60 hours worth of footage. That sounds really excessive. $50, 50 hours at $60 an hour or something. I don't know. He explained to me that he may not answer certain questions. Conversation was recorded on my body camera. During the conversation with Nicholas, he advised that he sleeps in the master bedroom with his wife Kayla and that April was just visiting on this day. This is a general overview of our conversation. See body cam for full details. At this time, it was determined that Nick, Kayla, and April Imholt would all be placed under arrest and transported to the Candy-Ojai County Jail by marked Candy-Ojai County deputies, as well as State Trooper Josh Monson. While placing Nicholas in the State Trooper's squad, I observed several injuries to his arms and photographed them. Okay, that's what we should see. They appear to be sores common with controlled substance users. I need you all to wait for me 1 second while I assist Lady Lawgic. All right. So this is an interesting reference where they say sores common with controlled substance users. And I think this is consistent with what I was saying that it's possible that there are sores that are associated with that are commonly associated with users. That's different from injections with the needle. I think if there were injection marks, I think that they would say that. Alicia Sweep with Candy-Ojai County Family Services was contacted and eventually came to the scene to assist with placing the children with their grandparents. So that's a good call. At least as grandparents for them to be brought to. During this time, Detective Oakleaf advised me that she spoke with Kayla Rekieta regarding giving a statement. At which time Kayla advised that she wanted to have an attorney. See this? See this? Detective Sergeant Brandis attempted to take a statement from April. After reading her Miranda warning, she indicated she wanted an attorney. So the women here all saying we want an attorney. not try and talk to the cops. Deputies continued to search the residence, and the above listed physical evidence was located and taken into custody of the Candiota County Sheriff's Office. Arrangements were made that the grandparents were going to secure the residence. We were able to close the door, and we documented the damage to the door. All officers left the scene approximately 11:05. So this is a 2-hour search of his home. They got there 9:13, I think is what they said, right? And they're leaving 11:05. I traveled back to the Candiota County Law Enforcement Center where the above listed evidence was processed and placed in the Candiota County Evidence System. I went to the county jail and requested Nick to speak with me. He indicated he was willing to do so. I brought him to an interview room with Candiota County Law Enforcement Center. He was again read his Miranda warning. He agreed to speak with us and waived his right to counsel. I'll tell you right now, this is hubris. In my opinion, that sounds like hubris. During the conversation, he refused to answer any questions regarding any cocaine use or any controlled substance use. Okay, so at least he's doing that. He advised me that he resides within the residence and stays in the master bedroom with his wife Kayla when he sleeps. He indicated that April Imholt was just a friend and was visiting and not live at the residence. He explained that he's extremely stressed out in regards to his 5 kids and their extra activities. See, I don't like this. This is why you don't talk. Don't talk. Don't talk. Unless he's saying he's stressed out in regards to his 5 kids and their extra activities. See, I don't know if this means today. Like I need my kid to get somewhere or something. But it's really a pretty blanket rule. Don't talk. Don't talk. Let your attorney talk. Pretty blanket rule. Don't talk. And I understand in the moment, it's so hard because you have so many things you want to say. I was advised after this interview that Alicia Sweep had contacted with Kayla Rekieta requesting if their live-in nanny, Chani Bitson, would be able to assist with anything at the residence. Sweep was advised by Kayla that technically Imholt was their live-in nanny. So there you go. I said that that's the role she's playing. So Kayla's saying that that's her role. She's a live-in nanny. I provided Rekieta a copy of law enforcement hold order for each of their children and placed it with their jail property. There you go. That's the end of the report there. Now, I asked at the beginning of this show if anyone was able to send me additional reports that I could review further. But if we look through here, I'm going to just do a quick search of that to see if in fact I got that. If anyone came through for me. I'll check over here also. And check over here. Do a quick search to see if anyone was able to get me over any other reports. So as I said, someone shared with me clips from another report that's not anywhere in what we just read. A quick search here. All right, so I'm not seeing any copies of additional reports. The reason that I thought that there may be additional reports, the reason I suspect that there are, is because someone sent me. Oh my, that is really small. Let me see if I can save this. Someone sent me save images. Oh Lord, this is going to take me a moment to try and fix this. how do I do this? How do I do this? All right, so someone sent me this as a much lengthier report, which I think has other reports and other additional information. When I download it from when you download a JPEG from X, it comes as a large JPEG, like the extension is large JPEG. So now I got to convert that and try and see if I can get that into a normal thing that I could open and work with. Problem is, I'm really a little concerned about names of the kids coming onto this thing. I really don't want to dox them. So what I might do is, I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to end my regular stream here on YouTube and Rumble. I'll go through whatever chats came in, and I'm going to end that here, and then I'm going to just switch over to locals, which the link is in the description and also pinned in the chat. And I'm going to cover that there, and what I'll do is I'll just spend a few moments redacting to try and protect these kids from being doxxed. Hi. Okay. Okay, I think that's the way to do this. That's definitely the way to do this. But I will tell you this before I wrap up on this whole thing altogether. I will tell you this. Nothing here seems like terribly out of the ordinary. A lot of this seemed to go down the way we would expect it to go. We happen to stumble on Nick, driving near the house when they're pulling up there. But frankly, from what we've seen so far, aside from the location of where the kids are in the house or how there's a little bit of a breakdown there as to how things went without much to tell, but it gives us a little breakdown there as to how they approached the house. And it is interesting to see the information. To me, what's really interesting is to see the information as to what it was that they're taking with them, because this gives us a little bit of an insight into what they're expecting to potentially use if this thing ends up going to trial instead of pleading out. So they're looking to build their case the whole way through, and when they're talking about their evidence, right? So the digital evidence here is that they have photographs. Obviously, we have no idea what's on these photographs. An audio recording of Nicholas Rekieta. That's probably from his dialogue with the officers. That's on body cam. And then the body cam video as to how the house looked, which I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to see, because all these claims as far as the neglect or the disrepair state of the house, something I think everyone's going to want to see. And then this PowerPoint video, which seems like it was created by the police. So this is sort of what they're locking away as to what we intend that we may have to introduce at trial. So where they have a clip from Nicholas Rekieta from his online podcast, which almost assuredly is in the May 21st podcast, which went viral, where they talk about the white powdery substance. So there you go. That's your that's what we see here. Okay. This guy again says, I can't find a page for you on Wikipedia. Do you have one? Curious. We can get you to list you as the cult leader there. I'm not the cult leader. No. The former live-in nanny is going to flip on rackets and he's going to get screwed. More charges are coming. Well, if the charges were dropped, a lot of people speculate as to whether or not the charges were dropped of their own accord because they didn't have enough to really charge her, or whether they were dropped because she very quickly flipped, on day one that she flipped. At this point, at this juncture, it seems like it's way too early for us to actually know. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. And of course, they can always threaten to bring charges against her and try and flip her if they're so inclined. Was brought up on Uncivil. If April was the living nanny, would neglected kids be on her? It's a great question. It's an interesting question. Or if not on her, at the very least, can it indicate that they should not be held liable for that because their nanny sucked, right? I think that's a really interesting question. Whether she actually what Kayla refers to her as a live-in nanny. The question is, was she actually such a live-in nanny? And I also don't know that you can. I don't know that you can wash away your obligation to take care of your children by saying like, "Well, I got them a nanny. It's not my fault if the you see them every day, so they're living in the house. Not like they're going to school. So I don't think that that would really work as a defense. I don't think anyone would be like, "Oh yeah, it's not on you if your nanny sucked." I think they would say, "No, that's on you." Nanny's husband found out live on a podcast, apparently going through divorce, and has been warned repeatedly over time by husband to get out of situation. Yeah, the nanny's husband has been going around talking in a lot of places. It's Aaron Imholt. He's been going around talking a lot of places and saying a lot of things, making a lot of accusations, some of which he seems to implicate himself in various crimes. And one thing that seems pretty evident is that for one reason or another, there's definitely a hostility there. Now that doesn't mean that he everything he says is a lie. Doesn't we don't know that everything he's saying is truth. And what we know is that he has he has he likely, from what we've heard, he likely has motivation to portray things in a way as negative as possible. That doesn't mean that anything he said is false. Could be everything he said is true. I don't know. I don't know. Sort of take it and say, okay, I guess I'll try to figure out what's true, what's not. We all take in as much information as we can, and then try to say what's true, what's not true. So I don't know. Do you believe anonymous hearsay when only general descriptions and no specific time frame can be used at all for a search warrant according to law? That would go to the and you're talking about the anonymous hearsay. So we had four people who approached this pastor Mellon, about with their issues. I I'll tell you this: when you say believe can be used at all for a search warrant according to law. I'm not sure if you're asking me as far as philosophically, do I agree with the law? I'm not sure what your question. I'm not sure the nature of what your question is. Should it have applied here? Look, you definitely can say that there should have been follow up. Perhaps they tried following up, and Pastor Mellon said, "I'm not giving you the names of the people who complained because that's a breach of their confidentiality with me. So I'm not going to give that to you." It's very possible, if not likely, that there was some sort of conversation along those lines, right? You would think that they tried to follow up. As far as precedent as to how things work in Minnesota, I certainly wouldn't know that. Well, what we have seen, we saw yesterday, is that Minnesota gives a lot of deference to these search warrants. So, if you're asking me morally if that's correct, maybe I have some qualms with that. If you're asking me legally, I think everything I've seen, this this search warrant seems, at the very least, like it's here to stay. Whether it should have come in or not, frankly, look, let's do a quick recap here. Quick recap of all the different things that they're dealing with. Okay, let's just do a quick recap because we have to look at this in the totality of circumstances. So let's do this quick recap right here, right now. Okay, you have you have Sergeant David Nestor coming in here. He's hearing from Mellon. Mellon's saying that look, we know the nanny left and now is working somewhere else, and they have this family that's moving in here, and none of this is a crime, illegal, anything like that. It simply is showing a house that's going through some fluctuations. At the very least, there's some fluctuations that are happening in the day-to-day life of the Reketas based on that we get. That's happening over the last couple of months. That's what we have. Then there are questions as to whether or not the children are being properly maintained. Then you have all these different signs from that they're getting from Nick. People saying that they see track marks, even though I don't think there are track marks, but they later end up finding sores that seem, consistent with um with everything. But at the time that they're issuing this, there are claims that there are track marks, that he's acting erratically, driving around lethargically. The kids are in state of disrepair. They're hungry. They're complaining of being hungry and not being fed, wearing smelly clothing. When you talk about as far as what the time is, if they're all coming now, should there be a follow up? Yeah, but you would assume that they're not all coming now for something that happened 6 months ago. So they're taking all these things, and they also noticing the shift in their weight, which now over the last couple of months she's become anorexic. He's lost a lot of weight, and they're basically saying that they're anonymous individuals claiming that the Imholts are helping the Reketas do drugs. And then they saw the stream on May 21st. So this thing as far as going to casino and leaving the 16-year-old in charge, I don't understand how that's relevant at all. I let my kids babysit when they're like 12, 13. If they seem responsible. 16-year-old kids, that's not even like relevant. Um Claims that the kids are not being homeschooled, meaning that they're not getting any education. And like I said, they're seeing the general disarray. They're seeing the body lost weight. They're hearing complaints that indicate that he's driving around lethargic. And they saw a stream. They saw a stream. All right. I'm gonna head on over to locals. Let me finish these up. Sorry, not nanny. April's husband. I know what you meant. Should the weight shouldn't the weight be divided by defendants? And this is what we talk about as far as constructive possession. It's an interesting legal question here because they're both controlling the entire house. So what are you going to say? They're both liable for it? Is neither liable for it? Do you split it 50-50? I'm sure that's an issue that's come up in Minnesota law countless times. I'm just not familiar with how that would work. I think it's a logical legal question. PSA: snort tubes and sea turtles are natural enemies. Well, there you go. All right. What's the relevance of all the weaponry? Is it necessary for proving drug charges or negligence? I don't think so. I think that they want to claim that you cannot have drugs near weapons. And when they refer to a loose gun under the bed that they purportedly found. So I think that they're basically trying to say that this is, a dangerous combination. Good on them, not easy to talk on Coca-Cola. There you go. Aaron Imholt from Steel Toe Morning Show finds out ex-wife and Nick Rekieta have been arrested. It's 2 minutes and gives additional history and info. Yeah, I don't know. Uh, I haven't watched very much of Aaron Imholt. April's not. The guy is going around, and I'll tell you why. I'm gonna say that for. Let me save that for locals because I'm not looking to express like opinion over here. I'm trying to make this just fact and law and cover it, get super chats. I'll try to put this aside. April is not the live-in nanny of 8 years who recently left brackets. Keep up, Joe. I never said she was. I never implied she was. And it's not 8 years. The live-in nanny was there for 4 or 5 years. So yeah, I'm a step ahead. Kayla referred to her as a live-in nanny. According to the police reports. Well, Nick said she's not living there. I babysat a judge's kids at 12 years. Yeah. Yeah, that happens all the time. 12 years old is totally she's just visiting. She is the nanny. Yeah, that's the inconsistency that is implied by this report between Nick and Kayla. Can't ignore that, right? Like what her status is. Couple of rants here. Ginger Ninja says, "Can't stick around. This stuff isn't good for me to keep following." I did want to say one thing though. Following my locals comment, Barnes is saying the search warrant shouldn't have been signed. Okay, but we're at a stage that it has been signed. You're saying, Ginger Ninja also says, you're saying due to non de novo, it won't get overturned. Nate and Kurt are saying it's the most perfect warrant ever to have been submitted. No need to ask about interested parties involved. What I'm saying is, I don't think it's the most perfect warrant ever signed. I don't think it's crazy. And I think that since there's no de novo, I think it's crazy to think at this point it's going to be thrown out. I have zero faith in the judicial system. It's corrupt to its core, so I don't know what will happen. But when I side with the Constitution, as the old adage go, always bet on Barnes. Peace, brother. Well, Barnes would have to pull a miracle out of his hat in order to save this thing over here for Rekieta's. I'm going to be switching over now to locals. I'm going to address this interesting question here. Maybe I'll look at that Aaron Amahold thing, but I'm also going to weigh in with some thoughts. Maybe I'll weigh in on that Aaron Amahold. Anyway, that's my show here. I'll catch you all at 10 p.m. tonight. Till then, take care of yourselves. Thank you for joining me, and as always, Godspeed.